Hello, everyone, and welcome to our June webinar 2018. My name is Chair Dachi. I'm your host today. So today we'll be looking at the learning and teaching support sites from various institutions. And this is actually the second of the series following our popular one last year. So we have four fantastic speakers who are going to share the why, the what, and the how of their support sites. Okay, so the next speaker we have is Dr. Katie Freund, and she is the Senior Learning Designer at ANU, and she advises academics on e-learning design and initiatives, researches innovative solutions in education technology, creates digital media resources, and trains staff on Moodle, what they call Wattle, and other digital tools for teaching and learning. She's also a researcher in education technology and digital communication. Over to you, Katie.
Great. I just want to check everyone can hear me okay. If you can give me a yes or a hands up, that would be excellent.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sandra. I see a lot of friends in the chat, which is wonderful. So I just want to also check quickly, how many of you have heard of the coffee courses already? Lots of thumbs up. Great. A few no's. Great. All right. So I'll just go through this relatively quickly. Going to the next slide. First, I just want to mention that it is a team effort. While I am the one here today, it's actually a large group of us that work on it. So my colleagues are all here, Janine, Carlene, and Jill. We all work very hard on these together. And you can email us about the coffee courses at our generic email at design@anu.edu.au. These are a few of the things I'm going to cover. Just kind of the benefit of being open, our goal to make the coffee courses a bite-sized type of training, and why we used a blog, and talk about some of the challenges. So I'll just zip through these quickly. So just for a tiny bit of background, in case you're not familiar with ANU, it's a beautiful photo of our campus, which of course doesn't look like that today because it's freezing cold and raining. But I'm part of a central team called ANU Online, which manages the technology enhanced learning and learning management system for ANU. And ANU is a kind of funny beast because it is a research institution. So the university kind of sees itself as research focused much more than any other university I've ever worked at. So that's just something to bear in mind. And the result of that means that teaching is often a kind of second priority. I'm sure many people can relate to that. And I just wanted to float this question. If people want to respond in the chat, that would be great. For your institution, what are the key issues around participation in professional learning for academics? So what barriers, issues, challenges do you face in your institution? If you want to share those, I would love to hear them because I suspect they're very similar. So while those come up and they're all similar, time, and workload, I will just share some of ours. Time was a big one. We had very low numbers in our traditional face-to-face on-campus training. Academics were very busy. They were not interested in coming to a computer lab for 2 hours. We had trouble communicating. There was never a good time, no matter what time we set the sessions. It was the worst possible time we could do it. The people really wanted training on demand, which is not something we were able to offer because we were doing set sessions at set times in computer labs. We decided to try to kind of toss all that out the window and focus on doing something different. So the coffee courses are public, similar to James and Andrea. Is run through WordPress on a public blog, so you can access it there, or the link has been posted in the chat. If you want to just click on that, please feel free. And as always, I want to highlight that the coffee courses idea was developed by Sarah Thornycroft at the University of New England, and she has very generously allowed us to use it. So much thanks and to Sarah for her generosity. All right. So what is a coffee course? You can look on the blog and poke around in there, and feel free to subscribe if you want to get updates. Essentially what we did was take the normal 2-hour session and break it into chunks, 10 to 15 minute chunks. And a course runs over a week, and each day during the week there's one blog post that takes 10 to 15 minutes to work through. So you subscribe to the blog, and every day at 10 o'clock in the morning tea time, because it's a coffee course, you get an email telling you that a new post has been added. And then whenever works for you, whether it's 10 o'clock or later, you get a cup of tea, you spend 10 minutes drinking your hot beverage, work through the material, and then finished. So keeping it bite-sized. So here are some of the recent topics that we have done. The last one was peer assessment. We've done how to create videos, virtual reality, open educational practice. The next course starts July 9th, and that will be designing effective online spaces for students, designing effective online learning environments. Compared to a lot of our face-to-face training, which had really poor attendance, the coffee courses are going quite well. I'm very delighted to say. So we've had 18 courses so far, more than 100 blog posts, 725 subscribers from ANU and far beyond, which I'll talk about. More than 2,000 comments. We gave out a prize to our 2,000th commenter last week, 2 weeks ago. And we've had nearly 600,000 hits in the last 18 months. So that is pretty exciting. So just to kind of go a bit meta about what goes into the courses, one of the things is to break down the time requirement. So everybody said time was the barrier, so that we tried to address that by making it very bite-sized. So small bursts. And the other main thing that we do is there is no incentive, or sorry, there's no disincentive, or nothing bad happens if you don't finish. You can do as much as you want, you can do as little as you want. You can read half of it, all of it, none of it. We don't mind either way. So we don't, it's all carrot and no stick. That's the kind of goal. So if you can't do all of it, don't stress, which is very different from our previous kind of bums on seats model for training. And I see Oriel's question, and I will definitely come back to that in the question time if that's all right, about how long it takes, because that's one of our challenges. So the benefit to using a blog is that it is a nice balance between synchronous and asynchronous. So the blog posts come out, and you can look at the blog posts in any amount of time you want. You could look at all 5 posts on Friday. You could look at 2 posts on Wednesday and 1 post on Friday, whatever. But it also runs during a set week, which gives it that kind of active live time where it's facilitated. So our team is in there answering questions and doing all that sort of stuff. It's a nice balance between self-paced and facilitated. We wanted to use something that was open and to all staff, because it allows particularly sessional staff who lose access to learning management systems and anything institutionally locked when they're not actively hired, even though they will likely be rehired in a few weeks. And we have people do it on research leave while they're overseas. We had someone participate while doing fieldwork in Thailand, and that was really great. And the other thing about the open blog is that it allows the coffee courses to reach an international audience. So we've had some great comments from Cuba and from the UK and from North America and all of that. The other thing I wanted to mention, that very slowly over 18 months, I feel like we're kind of finally starting to develop a community of practice out of the blogs. And this is developed partially due to our team's really, really strong effort to actively facilitate and to make connections, and we host occasional face-to-face catch-ups where we can go and meet on campus for a coffee that we buy, but that's not mandatory. But over time, the participants have gotten to know each other, and they get a lot of value from talking to each other, which is great. And there's a bit of a little network developing, and people regularly comment that what they get out of it is the discussion with other academics in the comments, rather than necessarily the content that we put out. The slide's looking a bit squished there, but the other thing we wanted to do is make everything an open educational resource. So everything on the blog is licensed Creative Commons attribution. So feel free to borrow, adapt, adopt, remix, revise the content with attribution to the author of the post. And we wanted to do that so that it was we wanted to kind of model openness. One of the reasons we wanted to make it all Creative Commons licensed was because units like ours, like all of ours, our TELedvisors type of units, are generally under-resourced, and we benefit greatly from open resources from other institutions like James and Andrea's examples earlier. That's exactly the sort of, we wanted to kind of pay it forward. And so we wanted to have some reciprocity. And if we all make all of our things open, then we all make everybody's lives easier. So thank you to everyone for making your things open, and hopefully you can benefit a little bit from ours as well. The last thing I wanted to mention was just some of the challenges. One of the biggest challenges is that measurement of participation, because people are really invested in receiving recognition. And I can talk more about that in a kind of open time, but tracking becomes difficult, especially as they get bigger. So the more participants, the harder it is to track. As it is public, people are not logged in and there's no kind of tracking of who does what. We only rely on people's comments, and then we have kind of de-identified analytics about number of visits. The other big challenge is the huge amount of time that it takes to write every course. To answer Oriel's question earlier, it is an absolutely massive investment of time to write every single course. Most of the material we use is curated rather than written from scratch, but that curation process takes ages. So I would say there's a pretty significant amount of time involved in writing every single one. So that's one of our problems. So I just wanted to kind of wrap up by saying that what we tried to do was identify the barriers at our institution, and the biggest barrier was time, and then address that directly by reducing the amount of time. So I guess my thing that I would say is that we keep the word limit really short. We have a max of 1,000 words, and we try to keep it under 800 for every post to keep it under that 10 minutes. And also to make things as open and as accessible and as flexible as possible. So that's kind of the barriers that we were trying to address through the coffee courses. The other issue that we face is, like I mentioned, the sustainability of it. It is a absolutely massive amount of work, not just to prepare the courses, but to advertise, to track, to write the material, to manage the comments. And finally, we are increasingly seeing a substantial amount of spam. Just absolutely astronomical spam subscribers and spam comments. And that is now a part of our administrative burden, is like manually removing or moderating all of that spam. So I guess it's a sign we're a little bit popular, but not one of the best benefits. And so what's next? We keep all the courses available all the time, so you can go back and do any previous course that you like at any time. And we have just piloted a certificate program. So this is the carrot. The big carrot is, if you do 10 coffee courses, you get an official certificate, which is the Technology Enhanced Learning in Higher Education certificate, which will be signed by our director. So that's very exciting. The last thing we're looking towards is more collaboration with international and Australian experts and guests. And I see some of our future authors are here today, so look forward to some future courses. And that is it for me. Questions are welcome, and I can go back and look at some of the previous questions if there's time.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Katie. And time is actually quickly running out. We've got only 10 minutes for Tom, the last speaker. So sure. We might just keep these questions for the discussion in the Moodle, if that's okay, Katie and everyone.
That's absolutely not a problem. Please feel free to email us or send me questions on Twitter. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Katie.